I was staring at the photo on my phone when my hands started shaking. The image showed my 6-year-old son Leo's palms, angry red welts spreading across his tiny hands like wildfire, the skin already beginning to blister. The emergency room doctor had just finished writing Byrne's second-degree chemical on the diagnosis sheet. My mother had done this. My own mother had deliberately rubbed hot chili oil into my baby's hands because he accidentally touched one of her precious porcelain figurines. But here's where the story gets even darker. Within 3 hours of leaving my mother's house, she had already posted on Facebook, painting herself as the victim of a disrespectful grandchild and neglectful daughter. That post had hundreds of sympathetic comments from her wealthy Dallas social circle. And my brother David had just called me, not to ask about his nephew's injuries, but to demand that I apologize to our mother for embarrassing her. If you've ever dealt with a toxic family member who always plays the victim, you need to hear what happened next. Please hit that like button and subscribe because this story is about to take a turn that shocked everyone, including me. Drop a comment below if you've ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting your child. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 weeks earlier, I was sitting in my cozy Austin apartment, surrounded by Leo's colorful artwork covering the walls, when my phone buzzed with a video call. The screen showed my mother Margaret's face, perfectly made up as always, her blonde hair styled in that expensive way that screamed old money Dallas. Behind her, I could see the pristine white furniture of her mansion, everything positioned with the precision of a museum display. "Sarah, darling, we need to talk about Leo," she began, her voice dripping with that particular sweetness that always preceded manipulation. "The annual family tea party is in 2 weeks. All the important families will be there. The Harringtons, the Westbrooks, even Senator Morrison's wife. Leo needs to be there. He needs to understand his heritage, not just spend all his time with your little art projects." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. My whole life, I had been the disappointment. The daughter who chose art school over business school. The one who married a teacher instead of a lawyer. The one who moved to Austin with its weird culture instead of staying in proper Dallas society. After my divorce 2 years ago, my mother had been even more vocal about my failures. "Mom, Leo is only 6. Your tea parties are very formal. I don't think he would enjoy it," I said carefully, already knowing how this conversation would end. Her expression hardened for just a fraction of a second before the sweet mask returned. "Sarah Elizabeth Monroe, that child is a Kensington on my side. Do you want him to grow up without knowing where he comes from? Without understanding the legacy I've built? What will people think if my only grandson isn't there?" The guilt hit me like it always did. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe Leo did need to connect with that side of the family. My brother David had 2 kids, but they lived in Boston now, rarely visiting. I was the only one nearby. Despite everything, despite the constant criticism and the way my mother made me feel small, I wanted my son to have grandparents. I wanted him to have family. "Okay, Mom. We'll come," I heard myself say. Her smile was triumphant. "Wonderful, darling. And please, dress him properly. No bright colors, navy or gray, and make sure his hair is combed. First impressions matter, especially with the Westbrooks." Their grandson is Leo's age, and they're already talking about Philip's academy. The 2 weeks that followed were filled with anxiety. I took Leo shopping for appropriate clothes, coaching him on how to behave. "Don't touch anything unless Grandma says it's okay. Use your indoor voice. Say please and thank you." My sweet, creative, energetic boy listened with wide eyes, sensing my nervousness. On the morning of the tea party, I dressed Leo in the navy suit we had bought. He looked adorable but uncomfortable, tugging at the collar. "Mama, why do I have to wear this? My regular clothes are way more comfortable," he asked. "Because Grandma likes things a certain way, sweetie. We just need to make a good impression, and then we can go home and you can paint whatever you want. Deal?" "Deal," he said, giving me that gap-toothed smile that always melted my heart. The drive from Austin to Dallas took 3.5 hours. With every mile, my anxiety grew. Leo fell asleep in the back seat, his head tilted to the side, looking so innocent and peaceful. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror and wondered, not for the first time, if I was making a huge mistake. We arrived at my mother's mansion in Highland Park at exactly 1 p.m., as instructed. The circular driveway was already filled with expensive cars, Mercedes, BMWs, a Bentley. Through the tall windows, I could see people in formal attire, holding delicate teacups, engaged in animated conversation. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She was wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my rent, pearls at her neck, diamonds glinting at her ears. Her eyes swept over Leo and me with the precision of a judge at a dog show. "Sarah, you look tired. Didn't you sleep? And Leo, come here. Let Grandma see you." She pulled Leo into what appeared to be a hug but was really an inspection. She smoothed his hair, adjusted his collar, then held him at arm's length. "I suppose this will have to do. Now, both of you, remember that Senator Morrison and his wife are here. Be on your best behavior." We entered the house, and I was immediately struck by how cold it felt, despite the Texas heat outside. Everything was white and silver and crystal. The living room was filled with women in designer dresses and men in expensive suits, all holding tiny sandwiches and making polite conversation. I recognized several faces from my childhood, people who had always looked at me with a mixture of pity and disdain. "Sarah, is that you? Oh my, it's been years. And this must be little Leo," one woman said, her tone making little Leo sound like an exotic pet. I plastered on a smile and made small talk, keeping one eye on Leo the entire time. He was being remarkably good, sitting quietly on a chair, his legs swinging back and forth. But I could see the boredom setting in, the way his eyes wandered around the room, taking in all the forbidden objects. My brother David arrived late, as always, with his usual swagger. He gave me a cursory nod before making a beeline for the group of men discussing real estate investments. David had always been the golden child. He had followed in our father's footsteps, going into finance, marrying the right woman, producing the right children. The fact that he was now divorced and barely saw his kids didn't seem to tarnish his image in our mother's eyes. After about an hour of mind-numbing conversation about country clubs and charity galas, my mother stood up and clinked her glass. "Everyone, if you would follow me to the sunroom, we have a special presentation on the new wing of the Dallas Museum of Art that the Kensington Foundation is sponsoring." The group moved as one unit toward the sunroom. In the chaos of movement, I lost sight of Leo for just a moment. When I turned back, I saw him standing in front of the display cabinet in the corner of the living room. The cabinet was my mother's pride and joy, a massive piece of furniture with glass doors, housing her collection of Ladro figurines. Delicate porcelain pieces, some worth thousands of dollars each, arranged with obsessive precision. Dancers, angels, children, flowers, all frozen in their expensive perfection. Leo was standing very still, his face pressed close to the glass, his eyes wide with wonder. One small hand reached out, drawn to a figurine of a boy with a puppy. "Leo, no. Come here, sweetie," I called out, starting to move toward him. But I was too late. As Leo leaned closer, his shoulder bumped the cabinet. The door, not properly latched, swung open. One figurine, a ballerina in mid-leap, wobbled on its shelf. Leo reached out instinctively to catch it, his fingers brushing against the porcelain. The figurine tilted, teetered, and then settled back into place. It didn't fall. It didn't break. It was just moved slightly from its original position. But my mother saw everything. The room went silent. I watched my mother's face transform. The polite society mask slipped, revealing something cold and cruel underneath. She walked toward Leo with measured steps, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown. "Leo, sweetheart, come here," she said, her voice still sweet but with an edge that made my blood run cold. Leo looked up at her, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see the pretty statue." "I know, darling. Come with Grandma. We need to have a little talk about respecting other people's property." She took Leo's hand, and he looked back at me, uncertain. I started to follow, but David stepped in front of me. "Let Mom handle it, Sarah. The kid needs to learn," he said. "David, he's 6 years old. He didn't break anything. He just touched it," I protested. "That's the problem. You never discipline him. No wonder he thinks he can do whatever he wants. Just let Mom teach him some respect for once." Something in me wanted to push past David, to grab my son and leave. But the years of conditioning, of always deferring to my mother's authority, of wanting to prove that I was a good daughter, held me in place. "Just for a minute," I told myself. "Just let her talk to him, and then we'll leave." My mother led Leo toward the kitchen, and I heard the door swing shut. The other guests, sensing drama, had made themselves scarce, moving to the sunroom as planned. David stayed with me, his arms crossed, his expression smug. 30 seconds passed. Then I heard it. A scream. High-pitched, terrified, the sound of a child in real pain. I shoved David so hard he stumbled into a chair. I ran to the kitchen, my heart pounding, my hands shaking as I threw open the door. The scene that greeted me will haunt me for the rest of my life. Leo was standing at the kitchen counter, his small body shaking with sobs. My mother stood next to him, holding his hands palm up on the granite surface. In her other hand was a small ceramic bowl filled with dark red oil. The air reeked of chili peppers and something else, something medicinal and harsh. As I watched in horror, my mother dipped her fingers into the oil and rubbed it into Leo's palms, pressing hard, her face completely expressionless. "Stop it. Stop it right now!" I screamed, rushing forward. My mother looked up at me, and there was no guilt in her eyes. None. Just cold calculation. "Calm down, Sarah. It's just a little of my special chili oil. Your grandmother used it on me when I misbehaved. It's a folk remedy for teaching children about consequences. The pain will fade, but the lesson will stay. He needs to learn that actions have consequences." I grabbed Leo, pulling him away from her. His hands were bright red, the skin already starting to swell. He was sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. "This is insane. This is abuse," I said, my voice shaking with rage and shock. David had followed me into the kitchen. He looked at Leo's hands and then at our mother, but his expression remained neutral. "It's just a little discomfort, Sarah. Don't be so dramatic. Mom's right. Kids these days don't learn respect." I stared at my brother, at this stranger who shared my DNA but apparently none of my humanity. Then I looked at my mother, who was calmly wiping her hands on a towel, as if she had just finished preparing dinner. "You want to know what I learned growing up in this house?" I said, my voice low and deadly calm. "I learned that surviving is not the same as being loved. I learned that cruelty dressed up as discipline is still cruelty, and I learned that some people should never have been parents." I wrapped Leo's hands in a damp kitchen towel and picked him up. Even though at 6 he was really too big to carry. He buried his face in my neck, his tears soaking my shirt. "We're leaving. And we're never coming back," I said. My mother's expression finally changed. Not to remorse, but to anger. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcomed back. I have given you everything, Sarah. Everything. And this is how you repay me? By being disrespectful and ungrateful? You gave me everything except what I actually needed. Love without conditions. Support without criticism. Safety," I said. I walked out of that kitchen, through the living room where wealthy Dallas socialites pretended not to stare, out the front door and to my car. I strapped Leo into his seat, his hands still wrapped in the towel, his crying finally subsiding into hiccuping sobs. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw my mother standing in the doorway, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. David was next to her, his phone already out, probably texting his wife about the drama. I drove straight to the nearest urgent care center. The doctor who examined Leo's hands looked at me with barely concealed suspicion until I explained what happened. She carefully documented everything, took photographs, applied burn cream, and wrapped his hands in gauze. "Burns, 2nd degree, chemical. You need to file a report," she said quietly. "I will," I promised. That night, after I got Leo home, gave him pain medication, and finally got him to sleep, I sat in my living room staring at my phone. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion and a rage that felt like it might consume me. My phone buzzed. A notification from Facebook. My mother had posted. I clicked on it, already knowing it would be bad, but not prepared for just how bad. The post was a masterpiece of manipulation. My mother had written a long reflection on how family values were deteriorating in modern society. She talked about children who weren't taught respect, about parents who refused to discipline properly, about the importance of understanding that valuable things required careful treatment. She never mentioned Leo by name, never mentioned the incident directly, but anyone who knew us would understand exactly what she was talking about. And the comments. Oh, the comments. So true, Margaret. Children today have no respect for anything. Your wisdom is always so refreshing. More parents need to hear this. We're raising a generation of entitled brats who think they can touch anything they want. I felt sick. She had turned it all around. In her narrative, she was the wise matriarch trying to teach important values. I was the permissive parent raising a destructive child. The actual abuse, the burning of a 6-year-old's hands, was completely erased from the story. My phone rang. "David." I answered, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, he was calling to check on his nephew. "Sarah, what the hell is wrong with you?" David's voice was angry, not concerned. You made Mom look terrible in front of her guests. You need to call her and apologize. This is about family. You don't just storm out like that." I felt something inside me snap. Something that had been bending and bending for years, trying to accommodate, trying to be the good daughter, trying to maintain peace at any cost. "Did you see Leo's hands, David?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "He was fine. It was just a little red. You always blow things out of proportion." The doctor diagnosed him with second-degree chemical burns. She had to file a report with Child Protective Services. "Our mother deliberately burned a 6-year-old child because he touched a figurine. And you're worried about her reputation? You're being hysterical." Mom was teaching him a lesson. Maybe if you disciplined him properly, she wouldn't have had to step in. That was the moment I truly understood. David wasn't going to have some sudden realization. My mother wasn't going to apologize. They were going to close ranks, protect the family image, and paint me as the crazy, overreacting daughter. I hung up on David without another word. For an hour, I sat there in the dark, my mind racing. I thought about all the years of criticism, of being made to feel less than, of watching my mother shower David with praise while finding fault in everything I did. I thought about how she had treated my ex-husband, constantly undermining him, making snide comments about his career as a teacher. I thought about every holiday, every birthday, every phone call where I had twisted myself into knots trying to earn her approval. And I thought about Leo's terrified screams, about his small hands blistered and burned, about the look in my mother's eyes as she hurt him deliberately and methodically. Something shifted in me. The fear of her disapproval, the desperate need for her love, the weight of family obligation, it all just fell away. In its place was a clarity I had never experienced before. I picked up my phone and went to my mother's Facebook post. For a moment I hesitated. What I was about to do would change everything. There would be no going back. My mother would never forgive me. David would probably never speak to me again. I would be officially exiled from the family. Then I looked at the photo on my phone. Leo's hands. The medical report. The truth. I typed a single comment and attached the photo. "This is the respect lesson my mother taught my 6-year-old son today because he accidentally touched one of her figurines. The emergency room doctor diagnosed second-degree chemical burns. I'm sharing this so other mothers know what family legacy really means to some people." I hit post before I could change my mind. Then I turned off my phone and went to check on Leo. The next morning, I woke up to 247 notifications. I made coffee, fed Leo breakfast, and only then did I turn on my phone and start reading. The post had exploded. It had been shared hundreds of times. The comments on my mother's original post had completely changed tone. "This is horrifying. Someone needs to call the police. I always thought Margaret was too perfect. Now we know why. That poor child. What kind of monster does this? People I didn't even know were messaging me with support, sharing their own stories of family abuse, offering help. A few of my mother's friends tried to defend her, but they were drowned out by the wave of outrage. Several people had also shared the post to local parenting groups, to child advocacy pages. One person had even tagged the Dallas Morning News. My phone started ringing. News outlets, bloggers, a producer from a local TV station. I ignored them all. What I couldn't ignore was the knock on my door at 2 p.m. I looked through the peephole and my heart sank. It was my mother. She must have left Dallas at 11 to get here this fast. I considered not answering, but I knew she would just keep knocking. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. My mother looked terrible. Her makeup was smudged, her hair wasn't perfectly styled, her clothes looked slept in. I had never seen her anything less than immaculate. "What have you done?" she hissed, her voice raw. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? The Westbrooks have uninvited me from their gala. Senator Morrison's office called to say they need to distance themselves from the foundation. The country club president called to suggest I might want to take a break from the board. You've destroyed me, Sarah. You've destroyed everything I've built." I stood in the doorway, keeping my body between her and the inside of my apartment where Leo was playing. "You came all the way here to tell me how this affected you?" I asked quietly. "Fix this. Take down that post. Tell people you overreacted, that you misunderstood what happened. Tell them anything. Just fix this," she demanded. I looked at this woman, this person who had given birth to me, raised me, shaped me. I looked for any sign of remorse, any acknowledgement of what she had done to Leo. There was none. Only fury at being exposed, only concern for her reputation. I could have told her that I was sorry. I could have said that maybe I did overreact. I could have tried to smooth things over, to make peace. to go back to the way things were. But then Leo appeared in the doorway behind me, peeking around my legs to see who was there. When he saw my mother, he immediately grabbed onto my leg, pressing his face against me, his bandaged hands clutching my jeans. And I knew. "You didn't apologize to Leo," I said. "You came here after 3 hours of driving, and the first thing you said was that I destroyed you. Not sorry. Not are you okay. Not I shouldn't have hurt him. Just anger that you got caught." My mother's face contorted. "I was teaching him a lesson. That's what you don't understand. You're too soft. You've always been too soft. That's why your life is such a mess. That's why your husband left you. That's why you're struggling." The words were designed to hurt, to make me doubt myself, to put me back in my place. They were the same words, in various forms, that I had heard my entire life. But something had changed. They didn't land the same way anymore. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I am soft. I believe in kindness. I believe in gentleness. I believe that children deserve to feel safe and loved. And you know what? I'm proud of that softness. It's not weakness. It's the only thing that's kept me human after being raised by you." My mother drew back as if I had slapped her. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice steady. "You're going to leave. You're not going to contact me. You're not going to contact Leo. You're going to take your ruined reputation and your empty mansion and your fancy friends, and you're going to live with the consequences of your actions. Because that's what you always said, right? Actions have consequences. Well, here are yours. You don't have a daughter anymore. You don't have a grandson. You have exactly what you built. A beautiful exterior with nothing inside. I can sue you," she said, her voice desperate. "I can sue for grandparent rights. I can tell the court you're unstable." "Go ahead," I said. "Please. Please go to court and explain to a judge why you think you should have access to a child you deliberately burned. Show them the medical records. Show them the photo. I would love to see that." Something in my mother crumpled. She seemed to age 10 years right in front of me. For just a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You'll regret this, Sarah. You'll regret this when you're alone and struggling and you have no one," she said, her final attempt at control. "I'm not alone," I said. "I have Leo. I have friends who actually care about me, not my social status. I have a life that's built on something real. What do you have, Mom? When you go home to that big empty house, what do you actually have?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She just stood there, deflated, defeated. I slowly closed the door. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there for a long moment before finally turning and walking back to her car. She sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, her head bowed, before finally starting the engine and driving away. The next few weeks were surreal. The story had spread beyond social media. Several parenting blogs picked it up. A child psychologist reached out, asking if she could use the story as a cautionary tale about generational trauma. 2 different lawyers contacted me, offering to help if my mother tried to pursue legal action. David called once, leaving a voicemail that was equal parts angry and pleading. "You've torn this family apart, Sarah. Mom is selling the house. She can't show her face anywhere. Are you happy now? Was it worth it?" I didn't call him back. There was nothing to say. What surprised me most was the support. Women I had known in high school, people I hadn't talked to in years, reached out to tell me their own stories. Stories of abusive parents, of toxic family dynamics, of finally choosing their children over their family of origin. One message in particular stood out. It was from a woman named Jennifer who had been in my art class in college. She wrote, "I watched you for 4 years shrinking yourself, apologizing for taking up space, trying so hard to be good enough. I always wondered what made you that way. Now I know. I'm so proud of you for protecting your son. You've broken the cycle. Broken the cycle." Those words stayed with me. I had grown up believing that family was everything, that you owed your parents unwavering loyalty regardless of how they treated you, that speaking out about abuse was shameful and wrong. I had internalized so much of my mother's criticism that I barely recognized myself anymore. But Leo was teaching me something different. Every morning when he woke up, he would show me whatever new creation he had imagined. Every afternoon, he would tell me elaborate stories about the characters in his drawings. Every evening, he would ask me if I was happy, because to him, my happiness mattered. He was teaching me that love wasn't supposed to hurt, that family wasn't supposed to make you feel small, that childhood was supposed to be safe. His hands healed over the following months. The physical scars faded, though you could still see faint marks if you looked closely. But he didn't seem traumatized by the incident. We talked about it, of course. I explained to him, in age-appropriate terms, that what his grandmother did was wrong, that adults who hurt children are not safe people, and that we wouldn't be seeing her anymore. "Okay, Mama," he said simply. "Can we go to the park now? Children are resilient in ways we forget. What matters isn't shielding them from ever being hurt. What matters is showing them that when they are hurt, someone will protect them, someone will believe them, someone will act." 6 months after the tea party incident, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was David. "Sarah," he said, his voice lacking its usual confident tone. "I need to tell you something. Mom's moving. She sold the house. She's moving to Arizona to be near Aunt Caroline. She's not doing well." "Okay," I said neutrally. "She's been asking about you, about Leo. She won't admit she was wrong, but I think maybe she realizes she went too far." "David, why are you telling me this?" I asked. There was a long pause. I've been thinking a lot about that day. About what I said, how I reacted. My therapist thinks I might need to examine some patterns from our childhood. "Your therapist?" I couldn't keep the surprise out of my voice. "Yeah," Michelle insisted. "Said I have anger issues and control problems. We're separated now." She took the kids to her parents, and sitting in my apartment alone, I started thinking about how we grew up. About how Mom treated you versus how she treated me. About how she used me to control you. And I realized, he paused, his voice breaking slightly. I realized I've become her. I did the same thing to Michelle that Mom did to you. I gasped her with criticism and control until she had to leave to protect our kids. I didn't know what to say. This was the most honest David had been with me in decades. "I'm not asking you to forgive Mom. Or me. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. And I'm sorry I didn't protect Leo that day. I'm sorry I've never protected you. Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. "I mean that. Are you happier now? Without us?" he asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yes," I said. "I am. It's not easy. Sometimes I miss having family, or at least the idea of family. But I'm not constantly anxious anymore. I'm not second-guessing every decision. Leo and I have peace." "Good," David said. "That's good. Take care of yourself, Sarah. You too, David. We haven't spoken since." Now, a year after that terrible tea party, I'm standing in a small art gallery in downtown Austin. The walls are covered with bright, joyful paintings. Swirls of color, abstract shapes, fantastical creatures, all created by children in an after-school art program I helped start. In the center of the main wall is a large canvas. It's Leo's. He painted our apartment building, but in his version, it's made of rainbows and floating in clouds. At the bottom, he painted 2 figures holding hands, one tall and one small. Below it, in his careful 6-year-old handwriting, he titled it, "Me and Mama Happy." People are moving through the gallery, admiring the artwork, and I hear snippets of conversation. "This is wonderful. We need more programs like this. Look at the imagination. These kids are so creative. Which one is yours?" "Oh, the rainbow building? That's beautiful." Leo is next to me, wearing paint-splattered jeans and a bright green shirt he picked out himself. He's explaining his painting to anyone who will listen, his hands gesturing wildly, completely unself-conscious and free. A woman approaches me. "Are you Leo's mom?" she asks. "I am," I say proudly. "He's a special kid, so open and joyful. You've done a wonderful job with him." "Thank you," I say, and I mean it. Not just thank you for the compliment, but thank you for seeing my son, really seeing him, and appreciating who he is. My phone buzzes. A text from my friend Rachel. "Saw the gallery photos online. Leo's painting is incredible. You both look so happy. I'm so proud of you." I smile and type back. "We really are." As I'm putting my phone away, it buzzes again. This time it's from an unknown number with an Arizona area code. My finger hovers over the message. I know who it's from without opening it. After a moment's hesitation, I delete it unread and block the number. Some doors, once closed, need to stay closed. Leo tugs on my hand. "Mama," the gallery owner said they sold 2 of my paintings. "Can we use the money to buy more art supplies? I want to paint something really big next time." "Absolutely," I say, kneeling down to his level. "What do you want to paint?" "I want to paint all the people who came to see my art today. Everyone was so nice," he says, his eyes shining with excitement. That sounds perfect, I tell him. As we leave the gallery that evening, Leo's hand in mine, I think about legacy. My mother was obsessed with it. The Kensington name, the social standing, the image of perfection. She built her entire life around maintaining that legacy, and in the end, it cost her everything real. But Leo and I are building a different kind of legacy. One based on creativity and kindness and the freedom to be ourselves. It's not grand or impressive by society's standards. There are no fancy galas or newspaper mentions or country club memberships. But it's ours, and it's real, and it's filled with more genuine love than my mother's pristine mansion ever held. The phone buzzes one more time as we're getting into the car. It's Jennifer, my friend from college. I saw the gallery photos. Leo's art is amazing. And Sarah, I hardly recognize you. You look lighter somehow. Like you're finally taking up all the space you deserve. I'm so happy for you. I look at myself in the rearview mirror. She's right. Something in my face has changed. The constant tension is gone. The apologetic hunch of my shoulders has straightened. I look like someone who knows she made the right choice. As we drive home through the Austin evening, Leo chattering excitedly about his next art project, I realize something profound. My mother thought she was teaching Leo a lesson about respect that day. And in a twisted way, she was right about one thing. Pain can be a teacher. But the lesson wasn't the one she intended. The lesson was that some people will hurt you and never see anything wrong with it. The lesson was that family doesn't mean you have to accept abuse. The lesson was that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. And the most important lesson, that from the ashes of toxic relationships, you can build something beautiful and new. Leo and I didn't just survive my mother's cruelty. We used it as a catalyst to create the life we actually wanted. A life where a child's worth isn't measured by how well he follows arbitrary rules or impresses the right people. A life where mistakes are opportunities to learn, not reasons for punishment. A life where love is expressed through encouragement, not control. That's our legacy. That's what we're building. And every single day, it proves to be worth more than all my mother's carefully curated respectability ever could be. The last I heard, my mother is living in a gated community in Scottsdale, her social circle dramatically reduced. She volunteers at a charity, probably trying to rebuild her tarnished image. I don't wish her ill. I don't spend time thinking about her at all anymore. She made her choices. I made mine. And on quiet evenings, when Leo is asleep and I'm sitting in our colorful little apartment, surrounded by his artwork, I'm filled with a peace I never thought possible. The peace that comes from knowing that I protected my child when it mattered most. The peace that comes from finally putting myself and my son first. The peace that comes from breaking free. Some people say I took revenge on my mother by posting that photo, by exposing her. But that's not how I see it. Revenge implies I did something to hurt her for the sake of hurting her. What I did was tell the truth. I chose protection over silence. I chose my child's safety over my mother's reputation. And in doing so, I set both of us free from a cycle of abuse that had probably been going on for generations. That's not revenge. That's revolution. That's breaking the cycle. The hardest part wasn't the initial break. It was the months that followed, when I had to actively resist the pull to go back, to apologize, to make peace at any cost. There were moments of weakness, usually late at night, when the loneliness felt overwhelming and I wondered if I had overreacted. If maybe I should have just kept quiet, maintained the relationship, found a way to manage my mother's behavior without blowing up the entire family structure. Those moments of doubt were the most dangerous. Because that's how abuse cycles continue. The abuser doesn't have to do anything. The victim does all the work of maintaining the relationship, of making excuses, of minimizing the harm. We tell ourselves that family is forever, that blood is thicker than water, that we only get one mother. We gaslight ourselves into believing that our hurt isn't legitimate, that we're being too sensitive, that we should just try harder to understand where they're coming from. But then I would look at Leo, thriving in an environment free from criticism and fear, and I knew with absolute certainty that protecting him was worth any amount of loneliness or social judgment. About 9 months after I cut contact, something unexpected happened. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop while Leo was at school, when a woman approached my table. She was probably in her 50s, well-dressed, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Monroe?" she asked hesitantly. My guard went up immediately. I had become wary of strangers ever since the story went viral. "Yes," I said carefully. "I'm Patricia Westbrook." she said, and the name hit me like a punch. The Westbrooks? One of the families at my mother's tea party. One of the families my mother had desperately wanted to impress. I watched her face for signs of hostility, but saw none. "May I sit for just a moment?" she asked. "I promise I'm not here to cause trouble." I nodded, still tense. She sat down and took a breath. "I need to thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "When you posted that photo, when you told the truth about what your mother did, it changed my life." "I'm not sure I understand," I said. "My mother-in-law," Patricia continued, "has been terrorizing my daughter for years, making her feel worthless, criticizing everything she does, undermining me at every turn. I kept telling my husband we needed to set boundaries, but he always said I was being dramatic. That it was just how his mother showed love, that family was important and we had to make it work." She paused, her eyes filling with tears. "But when I saw what you did, when I saw you choose your child over family loyalty, it gave me permission to do the same. I showed my husband your post and said, 'This is what happens when we normalize abuse and call it family tradition. Either we protect our daughter, or we end up just like the Kensingtons, with a beautiful image and a rotten core.'" "Did he listen?" I asked. "Eventually. It took some therapy, some hard conversations. But yes, we've set firm boundaries now. My daughter is happier. Our marriage is stronger. And it's all because you had the courage to go first, to show that it's possible to say no to toxic family dynamics." I felt tears spring to my own eyes. I had been so focused on the criticism, on the people who thought I was vindictive or attention-seeking, that I hadn't fully registered the stories like Patricia's. The women who reached out to say I had helped them, the parents who said I had given them a framework for protecting their own children. "Thank you for telling me that," I said. "There are days when I wonder if I did the right thing." "You did," Patricia said firmly. "You absolutely did. Your son is lucky to have you." After she left, I sat in that coffee shop for a long time, thinking about impact and legacy, and the ways our actions ripple out into the world in ways we can't always see. Now, standing in the gallery surrounded by children's artwork and joy and creativity, I understand something my mother never did. True legacy isn't about the impression you make on important people. It's not about maintaining an image or protecting a reputation. True legacy is about the people you protect, the cycles you break, and the freedom you create for the next generation. My mother's legacy is a burned bridge and a cautionary tale. Mine is a son who knows he is loved unconditionally, who feels safe expressing himself, who will never doubt that I will protect him, no matter what. I choose my legacy. Every single day, I choose it. As we drive home that evening, Leo falls asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the excitement of his first art show. I glance at him in the rearview mirror, his face peaceful, his bandaged hands now healed, and I make a silent promise. I promise that he will never know the fear of conditional love. I promise that he will never twist himself into shapes trying to earn approval. I promise that he will grow up knowing that his worth is inherent, not earned. And I promise that if anyone, ever, tries to hurt him the way my mother hurt me, I will not hesitate. I will not doubt myself. I will protect him with the same fierce certainty I felt when I closed that door in my mother's face. Because that's what love actually looks like. Not perfect tea parties and expensive gifts and social connections, but fierce, unwavering protection, boundaries that hold firm even when they're hard, truth-telling even when it costs you everything. Later that night, after I've tucked Leo into bed and he's drifted off with a smile on his face, I sit down at my laptop. I've been thinking about writing this all down, really writing it, not just as a Facebook post but as something more complete. Maybe others need to hear the whole story. Maybe others need permission to do what I did. I open a blank document and start typing. The words flow easily now, without the fear and hesitation that used to characterize everything I did. I write about the tea party, about the burning, about the Facebook war, about the final confrontation. I write about the loneliness and the doubt and the fear. But I also write about the freedom, about Leo's laughter, about the peace that comes from living authentically. I write about what I've learned. That setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. That protecting children is more important than preserving relationships. That sometimes love means letting go of people who refuse to treat you with basic human decency. That you can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. That healing is possible, even after decades of damage. As I write, I realize that this story isn't really about my mother at all. It's about me, about finding my voice after years of silence, about discovering my worth after a lifetime of being told I was never enough. about learning to trust my instincts after being taught to doubt them, about becoming the mother I needed when I was a child. My phone buzzes with a notification. It's a message from a woman I don't know. I almost ignore it, but something makes me open it. The message reads, "I just read your story on the parenting forum. Someone shared it too. I'm sitting in my mother's house right now, watching her criticize my daughter, and I'm terrified to say anything because I don't want to cause family drama. But reading what you went through, seeing how you chose your child over keeping the peace, it's giving me courage. Tomorrow, I'm going to have the conversation I've been avoiding for 5 years. Thank you for showing me it's possible. Thank you for going first." I read the message 3 times, tears streaming down my face. This is why I told the truth. This is why exposure was necessary. Not for revenge, not for attention, but for all the mothers and daughters and children who need to know that they're not crazy, that their pain is valid, that protecting themselves is not only acceptable but necessary. I type back, "You can do this. Your daughter is watching you. Show her what it looks like to have boundaries and self-respect. Show her that her safety matters more than someone else's feelings. I'm rooting for you." The next morning, I wake up to find that Leo has been up early, painting. He's created a new piece, this one showing our apartment building again, but now there are stars all around it and a big sun shining down. At the bottom, he's written in his careful handwriting, "This is where we are safe." I pick him up and hug him tight. This beautiful boy who will never know what it's like to walk on eggshells in his own home, who will never have to earn love through perfect behavior, who will never wonder if protecting himself makes him a bad person. He is my legacy, this safety, this joy, this freedom, not a mansion full of expensive objects, not a network of influential friends, not a carefully curated image, just a child who knows, without question, that he is loved and protected, and that is everything. 6 weeks later, I receive a letter. Real mail, not email, forwarded through my lawyer. The return address is Scottsdale, Arizona. I hold it in my hands for a long time before opening it. Part of me wants to throw it away unread. But curiosity wins. The letter is from my mother. It's typed, not handwritten, and it's short. "Sarah, I am writing because my therapist suggested it might help me process my feelings. I want you to know that I still believe I was right to discipline Leo that day. However, I recognize that my methods were perhaps more severe than I intended. I am working on understanding why you reacted so strongly. I hope that in time, we might be able to rebuild some kind of relationship. I am your mother, after all. Margaret." I read it twice, looking for the apology that isn't there. Looking for any acknowledgement of real wrongdoing. Looking for any concern for Leo, not just her own feelings and her damaged reputation. It's not there. Of course it's not there. Some people never change. They just learn new ways to reframe their behavior, new vocabulary to make themselves sound reasonable while still refusing to take real accountability. I take the letter, fold it carefully, and put it in a file labeled documentation. Not because I plan to respond, not because I'm holding on to hope for reconciliation, but because I've learned that with people like my mother, you keep records, just in case. Then I go into the living room where Leo is building an elaborate structure out of blocks, narrating an entire story about the kingdom he's creating. I sit down next to him and join in his game. This is my choice. Every day, it's my choice. Leo's laughter over my mother's approval, peace over performance, truth over image, safety over family obligation. And I would make the same choice 1,000 times over. So let me tell you something if you're in a similar situation. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, if you have a parent or family member who hurts you or your children, who manipulates and controls and refuses to acknowledge the harm they cause, you are not obligated to maintain that relationship. Family is not a free pass to abuse. Love should not require you to sacrifice your well-being or your children's safety. And choosing to protect yourself and your kids does not make you selfish, vindictive, or wrong. It makes you a good parent. It makes you strong. It makes you someone who understands that the cycle has to stop somewhere, and you're brave enough to be the one who stops it. Will it be hard? Yes. Will people judge you? Absolutely. Will you have moments of doubt and loneliness? Without question. But will it be worth it? God, yes. 1,000 times yes. Because on the other side of that hard choice is peace, is freedom, is the ability to build a life based on your values, not someone else's expectations, is the knowledge that you protected the people who needed protecting, even when it cost you everything. That's the story I want to tell. Not about revenge, but about revolution. about ordinary people making extraordinary choices to break cycles of abuse and create healthier families. About the courage it takes to say no, to walk away, to choose yourself and your children over toxic loyalty. My mother taught me many things, though none of them were what she intended. She taught me what kind of parent not to be. She taught me that image without substance is worthless. She taught me that pain is indeed a teacher, but the lesson is to avoid people who think causing pain is acceptable. Most importantly, she taught me, by negative example, what real love looks like. And now I get to give that real love to Leo, breaking the generational curse and starting something new. That tea party was supposed to be about legacy and tradition and teaching my son his place in the family hierarchy. Instead, it became the catalyst for the most important decision of my life. The day I chose my son over my mother, the day I chose truth over peace, the day I chose freedom over acceptance, and I've never looked back. This is my story. But more importantly, it's my invitation to you. If you're trapped in a toxic family dynamic, know that escape is possible. Change is possible. A different life is waiting on the other side of that hard conversation, that firm boundary, that final goodbye. You deserve to be treated with respect. Your children deserve to be safe. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved is to end relationships that are built on dysfunction and pain. Choose yourself. Choose your kids. Choose peace. Choose freedom. I did. And I'm here to tell you it was the best decision I ever made. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself or your children? How did you find the courage? Drop your story in the comments below because someone else needs to hear it. Someone else needs to know they're not alone. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you something to think about or helped you feel less alone, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the more we talk about these difficult topics, the more we normalize setting boundaries and protecting children, the more people will find the courage to make the changes they need to make. What's the hardest family boundary you've ever had to set? Let me know in the comments. Let's build a community of people who understand that sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do.